Welcome back to the Intelligent Builder podcast, sponsored by Plutus Agents. Today, I'm joined by Kara Roche, the operation manager at Castle Haven Construction in the Atlanta market. Kara's role is basically the nerve center of the business, operations, client onboarding, marketing, estimating, even in-house design. So she sees the full picture of what makes a remodel run smoothly and also what makes it go sideways. And Castle Haven's also been around for about 20 years, over 20 years, starting small and evolving into now higher end renovation work. So right now they're really in an interesting inflection point. So tightening the processes, raising their minimum project size, and trying to grow without losing the quality. So, Kara, it's great to have you on.
Thank you so much. I'm happy to be here.
Of course, yeah. So before we jump into all the hats you're wearing and how you make sure everything's running smoothly, how did you end up at Castle Haven? Because I know you started in fashion, right? So what was that journey from fashion to Castle Haven?
So it's been a little interesting ride. In college, I did go to school for fashion merchandising, fashion design. Quickly realized I did not love New York, and there's not a lot of that in Atlanta. So I kind of moved on from that pretty quickly. My family's been in real estate. They've always been in design. So I've always sort of liked that. But I started having kids. I ended up being an online trainer for a training company for online learning training company. So I did that for about 15 years. And then a few years ago, I was going through a major change in my life. So I decided if I was going to change my life, I was going to do what I love to do. So went back to school again for interior design. And here I am.
Yeah, that's awesome. I appreciate you running through that story. So then when you joined Castle Haven, what were you thinking you were signing up for? And then what did it kind of turn into?
Well, I definitely knew I was signing up for operations manager. I was hoping it was going to turn into more design type of situation because that's really what I wanted to do. But I quickly just started wearing all the hats, which I love. I like to be involved. I want to know everything that's going on so I can help our team as much as possible. So it started out slow, just doing a little, we changed our online portal from BuilderTrend to JobTread. So started out just sort of getting everyone used to that. And then it just sort of started to evolve from there to where now I'm helping with estimates. We do collaborate in design. My boss and I, Adam, and I both do design work. And then I help with the selections. I do all the ordering and then just help the guys wherever they need.
Awesome. Yeah. So it's good you do get to do a little of that design work too. But since you own a lot of the process and a lot of what goes on in the business, I know you said you like to have a little bit of your reach in all aspects, right? So what do you enjoy most about seeing the whole chessboard in a way?
I love being able to see it, the whole process from beginning to end, and really see. I've been here about almost 2.5 years now, so I've finally gotten to see projects go from the very beginning to the very end, and it's a very cool process. It can be stressful at times, especially when you're getting from the design to the build. There's a lot that goes into the before work before you even, knock down a wall or paint a wall or anything. There's a lot that goes into it before you can even get to that part, which I enjoy being a part of. So my boss and I, we do all of that stuff beforehand. We handle all the design. If we're using a designer, we're handling all the design stuff with that designer, all of the coordination with the subs while we're getting estimates, every little detail. We want to make sure the guys have everything. So when we hand them their binder to start building on that day, they are ready to go and shouldn't have too many hiccups. That's the hope anyway. So over the last couple of years, that's been a big deal for us, is to really tighten our processes, really get some good onboarding processes, and just really trying to make everything tighter for the clients, for the team, so that we're all cohesive and we're not having to, stumble to get things done.
Yeah, no, definitely. So kind of jumping off the building of processes, your boss started as a handyman, right? It was kind of a small business, and then,
Yes.
now it's over 20 plus years old and somewhat
Yes.
at an inflection point now. But so you've been there for 2.5 years. So from the start to now, what were those big shifts that maybe you were kind of involved in changing process? I know you said builder trend to job tread, but what were some of the initial big shifts you made?
I'd say the job tread was a big one for sure. And then just little things like I started going on sales calls with my boss, which was very helpful because when he would go, he's doing the selling, he's talking, he's getting all the information from the client. So I'm there now to take pictures and to write notes. So we just have very detailed notes at that very first client meeting. I send a follow-up email that's very detailed with all the next steps, just little things like that that he just didn't have time to do. Really just creating more touch points with the clients. The social media aspect and the marketing, I've done a ton of. He, again, didn't really have a ton of time for that. So we've really been trying to focus on that the last year or so. And this year, especially, like we've revamped our whole marketing plan. So the last couple months, that's what I've really been working on is our new advertising plan, our new marketing plan for social media. We're going to be advertising in a few new magazines that we've never advertised in before. We're going to start doing Google ads. So just little things like that he just didn't have time to do because he was running a business. So, now I have the time. I can do all the research. I can vet the things we need vetted and, really nail that down. There wasn't really a very strict onboarding process with clients. So now that's also another thing I'm working on. So now when we get, it's called a PCA. So that's our pre-construction. That's our design phase and our estimate phase. So now when we're doing that, as soon as we sign a client, we give them a whole folder with all the information. So everything we're going to need from them, everything they can expect from us. So it's just a really nice timeline of things that are going to happen because when you're talking to people in the consultation, they hear things that they want to hear or they don't remember or they have questions. So, we're always here to help and answer questions, but it's also nice for them to just have something to go back and look at and really be able to understand the whole process because every time you do a renovation, it's completely different. So you really just need to know how the contractor works and how the client works. And so we're really trying to flesh that out and make sure that it's very clear and everyone understands the process and knows exactly what's due when with selections, with everything.
Yeah, no, that's all super important. The beginning part of what you were talking about, kind of helping him build the process side of the sales pipeline is huge. Like I posted about that today on LinkedIn actually. And the follow-up process, like the multiple touches too, also super, super crucial to that sales process. But you mentioned the client intake, and I know you have a shift there, but something you told me on the last conversation we had is all selections are made before we even finalize the proposal. So it's a true final proposal, less
Yep.
surprises for the client and you. Can you kind of walk me through that approach and why it really works?
Yeah, for sure. So we used to do a lot of allowances where we would get through the design process and then we would get to the build and we wouldn't have certain faucets picked or a tile picked. We'd have allowances. The thing about allowances is one, if the client can't make a decision, that's going to impede the schedule, which delays everything. Two, they usually go above what the allowance is. So if you have $5 a square foot for a tile, they usually go $7 or $8 a square foot. In theory, when you're thinking about it and you're walking through the proposal with them, they're like, oh, yeah, $5, no big deal. But then, of course, they walk into the store, they see the $8 one, that's what they want. So then that turns into a change order, which is a whole nother process. So we're really trying to not do that anymore. And we really want to make the client have, like you said, the fixed price proposal. So and this is the part where we're still working on getting the client used to it because it's a lot of work in the beginning. So the design and the estimate phase is a lot of work and it takes a lot of time. And clients can get a little antsy with that part because it does take a couple months, sometimes 3, depending on all the different things, depending on how quickly the client can pick a selection, all the things that go into it. So we've started doing where they have to pick all of their selections before we even do the proposal. So now they get a spreadsheet. Again, it's in the PCA folder that we give them. And there's a whole selection sheet with every single selection there's going to need to be made. And it is a lot. If they're doing kitchen, it's a lot. If they're doing a whole house, it's a lot. So it can definitely be overwhelming. But it's really just a checklist for them to go through. There's certain things where they literally just have to say yes, no, check mark. But then there's also a place where they can put a link for the faucet that they want in the kitchen or a link for the tile that they want in the bathroom. And then that way I can go get the correct price, the square footage, whatever it may be. We know the finish. We know we know the lead times. The lead times are a huge deal. So that way it's all in the proposal. So the guys know exactly what they're getting when they're getting it. The spreadsheet is a Google Doc. So everyone has access to it. The client, if we have a designer, the designer, all the guys, the project managers. So everyone can see where it's on, what's going on. And then there's also a place for if I order something or if the interior designer orders something, there's a place we can put a date. date ordered, lead time, if there's a return policy, because a lot of times we have to order things ahead of time and it might not be able to be used until that 30-day, after the 30 days. So if something's broken, we need to make sure, or they decide they don't want it, they need to understand that there's a 30-day return policy. I understand you're buying this on sale right now, but if you don't like it and you don't return it in those 30 days, then that's going to be a change order and we're going to have to buy something else. So it's really just making sure the client has as much information as possible and that we all have the information. And then again, we can get that all into the fixed price proposal. So when we sit down at that proposal meeting, they know exactly what they're getting, exactly when they're getting it. And if there is a change order later on, then we can say, but you chose this. Now we got to look at lead times and all of that, because the lead times are huge. If they find something at Floor and Decor and then decide they don't like it, and then they find something that's a 12-week lead time, that's going to be an issue. So, all of that just really helps with the planning part, the proposal part, and then the scheduling part, because we'll know accordingly lead times and all of that, how to schedule accordingly. So it all just builds on top of one another.
Yeah, that's amazing. You really thought of the little things there. Like the way you've structured it, it sounds like it's very sound and it works. Plus, it sounds simple enough too, because simplicity is super key, especially when you're dealing with the client side of things. But how do you maintain the momentum when that's such a long process for the client? Like if they're taking a long time, how do you do that without kind of making them feel rushed?
There's a lot of just hand holding, and I will definitely, if they need help, I'm happy to pick different selections for them. We really just need to know if, and they can tell us, they can say, okay, I want to do this stuff. Sometimes we have clients who they're like, oh, I got this. And they have everything picked out before I even hand them the list. Sometimes, it takes a little bit more hand holding or a little bit more help. And I'm happy to do that. I'll go meet the client at different showrooms and we can walk through, because of course I have relationships with a lot of these different vendors. So it just makes them feel more comfortable if I'm there with them. I can go online and can start just putting links in the spreadsheet for them, and then they can just sort of choose from there. It just really depends on how the client wants to work. And we're very flexible either way. I love finding selections too. So like I will look at faucets all day. As long as we have a little direction, do you want black? Do you want satin finish? All of those type of things. Do you want chrome? Your favorite color is blue, things like that, just so we have some direction. Because some people, it's very hard. They have no idea what they want, but they know what they don't want. They can sort of, I can give them a bunch of things and then they can sort of narrow it down and then we can go from there. But I try to be again, the touch points. So every week I'm reaching out to them saying, hey, how's it going? We try to give them a deadline at the beginning. And honestly, the PCA process, if there's not a huge deadline that we need to finish the project by for the client, it honestly, if the client wants to take 6 months to pick stuff out, that's fine. The only time it starts to get a little stressful is when they have something big coming up. Like, oh, we have a wedding in May, so we have to be done by May. And it's January and we haven't started. So, we just got to make sure we're just moving things along. So just gentle nudges. And then I just, always offer to help whatever they need, however we can be helpful and get that process through. And if they have questions or they're worried, or we're always there to do either a Zoom call, we'll go to you in person, email, texts, however the client wants to work. That's what we'll do. So pretty
Yeah.
flexible when it comes to that kind of stuff.
Yeah, no, that's how it should be. Sometimes hand-holding is super necessary, especially nowadays where a lot of clients probably expect like a white glove experience just based
Which
on
is
what
what
they see.
yes.
Yeah,
Yep.
it's what you always aim to strive to offer, right?
Yes.
And then you mentioned changing the client intake process a little bit. So what kind of prompted that? What was the process before and what are you trying to make it now?
I don't know if there was a ton of process before. I would say it wasn't official. So just trying to make it more official. So we have the checks and balances throughout. So before it was still the same where you were getting your selections made and things like that. But this is just more official. So now they have a guide. So a physical guide they can look at. And then being in JobTread helps a lot too. Builder Trend was a little different. I really don't know that much about Builder Trend. I was coming in as we were leaving. But JobTread has helped a lot with that as well, because you can do all your daily logs there. You can do all your pictures there. All of the client, they have their own personal portal. So everything is in that portal. So that helps with the process a lot too. They can see all their invoices. They can see the proposal, the contract, the schedule, all the pictures. They can see their selections in there. So it's just a one-stop shop, basically. It's where everything is in that portal. That's where they can communicate with us. So it's not that there wasn't a process. I'd say that's just now a little bit more tweaked and a little bit more official. And now there's just more paperwork for everyone to see. And again, like the selections, just having a spreadsheet that everyone has access to, because a lot of times, we're doing all this stuff in the beginning and then we just hand it over to the project manager and they'll have met the client maybe once or twice. They go to the walkthrough, but they don't know all the back end stuff that's been going on. They don't know the design, they don't know where the design started and where it ended up. So that's sort of just making sure that they have everything they need as well. So we also started doing like project manager binders where they now have a binder with all of the information in it. It's all housed on JobTread as well, but that way they just have a physical copy if they need it. Some people like that. Some people like JobTread. So just trying to make sure everyone has a way it works for them.
Yeah, maintaining that flexibility is really good, and having that comprehensive kind of knowledge base for them is key too, because that's where a lot of problems start is the handoff. So making sure that
Yes.
everyone has visibility consistently, that's
Yes.
awesome. And you did some sort of a rebrand recently too. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. So this is our new logo. So again, he's been in business for over 20 years. So he had this logo for a very, very long time. And it was a great logo. It was a house, um, very construction-y, so very good. And then we just started talking about how we wanted to sort of get to that next level. And the house was just very, again, construction-y. So we didn't feel like it was like that next top tier level of what we really do, which is renovations. We're not just a construction company. We do these high-end, beautiful renovations. So we really wanted our logo to reflect that. And it was a lot of back and forth. What are we going to do? It took a few months. Very stressful, actually. I had no idea. Choosing a logo and what it was going to say underneath the logo could be so stressful, especially when there are, multiple people trying to make the right decision on what it's going to be for the next 20 years. So it was quite the process, but we came up with a lion with a C just because, Castle Haven, we just felt that it, exuded the next level where we wanted to get, sort of elevated us from just a construction company more into that design, build, renovation company that we truly are. So we did that over the summer. And then this fall, we had a rebranding event where we invited colleagues, interior designers, architects, clients, friends and family. And we had it at a place called Walk Your Plan, which will actually put your blueprint of if you're doing a new house or any sort of blueprint or rendering, they put it on the ground so you can see it in full scale. So it's very, very cool. Very, very fun event. It was an awesome event. And then we featured the different architects and designers that we had worked with throughout the night, along with some of our own designs as well. So it was very fun. Very glad it's over. It was a stressful few months getting that all set up and ready, but it was a lot of fun and it turned out really great. And I really think the logo is where we want it to be and really speaking to what we want and where we're trying to go.
Yeah, that sounds super cool, the event. And I do love the logo, by the way. It looks good.
Thank
But
you.
I understand the stress of it because brand is super important and your logo is a big part of the brand, especially having multiple voices involved in that decision can be
Yes,
difficult. But so you had the rebrand and then you recently had a record year, which is incredible. And now
we
you're
did.
aiming for obviously higher numbers up
Correct.
to that, 8-figure range, which would be super exciting, but without creating chaos. So I'm curious as to why within that range, 5 to 10, right? And what's your approach this year to expanding?
So I think Adam, he's done an incredible job of building this organically throughout the years. And we do get a lot of referrals from past clients. And this year we got some really, really big, big projects, which was amazing. So again, yes, record year. And, now it's always going to be, oh, can we get there again? So I think the way we want to do it, we just really want to choose the projects that we really want to do, something that excites us and is fun, challenging, that's big. We want to do bigger projects. We want to do the whole house, renovations. We want to do the additions. We still love the kitchens and all of that, but we really just want to start getting up there higher and higher and doing the bigger, bigger projects. And I think we've talked about it a lot. We don't want to go crazy where we're doing, I've talked to some people and they're like, we do 75 bathrooms a year. And I'm like, I don't even know how you, what? Like that. Yes, you're making so much money, but then little things can get lost in the details. So I think the way Adam's been growing it over the last, 20 years is really smart because we never get overextended. So we're not going to have to go hire 10 people and then we have a bad year and have to fire 6 of them. So I think the way we're doing it is, the smartest way to do it, where we can sort of grow but not get overwhelmed, where we can just sort of grow it naturally and organically. And I think this year, again, like I said, we're trying to do a whole new marketing revamp. So just new magazines that more high-end magazines that we've never advertised in before. I'm trying to do a little bit more editorial type stuff. We're going to start, trying to apply for some awards and, just sort of start feeling things out and seeing where we can go and how we can get there. So we're trying to diversify our marketing more and just be seen more. And I think, that's going to be the best way to do it organically. And again, just start really, just keep making our clients happy and hoping that they come back because we have a ton of repeat customers. They're amazing. And, we get a ton of referrals. So hopefully with the marketing and the referrals, we're going to keep going and it's just going to be all the way up from here.
Yeah, no, that's a great strategy. And you were kind of like you're saying, you don't want to have to hire 20 to 30 people to really get to that next level. You want to keep it small and collaborative. So, what do you think you you need in terms of roles as you grow if you are to add people? And what are you kind of really trying to avoid adding?
So we talk about this a lot. um, it depends, right? So if we get a bunch of jobs, we have to hire another project manager. We also need someone to help in the office if we get a bunch more jobs. So it's sort of, chicken or the egg type of situation. So we're always debating, okay, well, what do we do next? Do we hire another project manager or do we need to get someone in the office to be like a selection coordinator to do all the selections and to do all the buying and things like that? Our production manager has been in the field for the last few years. So we're moving him into the office now. So going to be a big change. So we have 2 other project managers. So they'll be in the field. So they'll be having to sort of juggle more than before because now our production manager will be in office. So it's going to be just sort of delegating and figure out who can do what. Now that he's going to be in the office, he's going to take over more of like the estimating type of stuff, which will be amazing because that's going to free up a ton of my time to focus more on all the other things. And it's going to take something off Adam's plate so he can focus on all the other stuff that he needs to focus on. So that's a huge element that's going to help out a lot. So again, it's sort of chicken or the egg. We're not really sure. We think it'll probably be another project manager just to help with the workload. And then that should help us inside the office to keep things going smoothly. But then, then we're looking at, and as we design more, we work with designers, but we have started having to do a lot of our own in-house design. So that's always a thought too. Like, do we need to get a designer, an in-house designer? Do we need an architect? So it's always the great debate. Where do we go first? But I think it probably would be project manager and then get another office person like selection coordinator or something like that to sort of help with that part and the PCA part. Because again, the pre-construction is a lot of work. So I think Adam and I would definitely value having someone else in there to help with some of those things. But yeah, probably project manager first and then see where we go from there.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. On the estimating side too, that's something I've seen is always a struggle. It just takes a lot of time.
So
So
much time.
that's what I end up helping a lot of my clients with is just custom estimating because it takes forever. But having somebody else in there is super, super key. So it's
Yes.
not like you're the only one that knows how to do it. So if you're
Yes.
stuck somewhere else, you can't get that done. So that's great in terms of the hiring strategy moving forward, but a little bit more into the marketing because I know you're shifting your strategy there a little bit. So what's worked historically, and then now I know you're interviewing with some magazines and stuff like that, but is that what else is there to this new strategy?
Well, it's so right now we really don't have a lot. We're not advertising in a lot of places. We're only in 2 magazines right now. So now we're going to be in 3 different ones. So we'll be in 4 through June, and then we'll be in 3 pretty big Atlanta magazines throughout the rest of the year. And then we're going to sponsorship a couple of baseball teams. So we want to do some of that grassroots stuff too. and really give back to the community. Just little things like that. Last year, we did a couple of, Adam went to Galloway, so we were sponsors at the Galloway Schools Gala. So, probably going to do a couple more of those type of things. A lot of networking. I think networking is key. So, really going to try to get out there and network as much as possible because, everyone in the industry, if you know someone, you can't do it, you can pass it to us and vice versa. I really think, using the community is key and everyone helping one another, and it's not competition. There's so many of us, and we all, there's enough work to go around. So I really think that building that network is very important as well. Um, and then just little things like, again, like applying for some awards and seeing how that goes. I really think being in these key magazines, I think that's going to be a pretty good deal. I mean, we'll see, but I'm pretty excited about that, just getting more exposure in places that we've never been. So I think that's going to be very exciting. Again, just like the sponsorships, little things like that. And, that's not a ton of time. It's not a ton of money, but it's really important and it's giving back to your community. So I think that's also very important. And then we're still sort of tossing around the idea. We did some happy hours last year. So trying to decide if we want to bring those back. They unfortunately were on the two rainiest days in Atlanta. So torrential downpour both times I did them. So yeah, it was interesting. But so we might do that again, and that was just we did it at a couple places, one in Buckhead and then one in Dunwoody. And it was all for like our subs and for all the people we work with, all of our contacts. And then again, the rebranding event that had our clients there as well. So we've definitely discussed having like a client appreciation get together of some sort. I know some places do like home tours. So I think that would be really fun too, is to, offer one of our clients to throw a party in their house for them and then they can bring their friends. So again, just sort of getting to know people that way. So I've just sort of been revamping and just really thinking, what are the best ways to, again, diversify and just get us out there, get our name out there. I mean, we've been out there, but you can always be out there some more. We have yard signs as well, which is amazing to me. We actually get a lot of calls from the yard signs. So, that's just one other small little thing. And then a ton of social media. So I really like doing collaborations on social media. We do a lot of collaborations with our granite company. And I think, it's fun. And two, they see our followers and we see theirs. And so again, just cross collaboration on social media, I think is super, super important. So, really focusing on more Instagram and instead of all the other platforms and trying to, really zone into one platform as opposed to being everywhere. So just little things like that, I think are going to make a big difference.
Yeah, definitely. I think the magazines are going to be huge because that's just compounding visibility. Same with the awards, but like really staying with the community roots and just doing some more of the traditional. It's not necessarily, I mean, it kind of is marketing, but the traditional ways, not just throwing a bunch of money at ads. That's
Right.
going to differentiate you, make you more unique, and get your name out there, which is going to be super cool. But since we're talking about growth, let's say we're 12 months down the road from now and you're looking back, what would make you think this year was a win?
I think all the marketing stuff. So if we, these advertisements, really getting that exposure, I think knowing that we got some jobs from those, that would be a big win because we are sort of doing a little leap of faith with this whole new plan. And Adam's put a lot of faith in me. So I think, that would be a big deal. And really getting the whole PCA onboarding process really, really nailed down and getting our processes really, really fleshed out and clear. So we're just running super smoothly. I think that would be a huge win because, the onboarding process can be very overwhelming for a lot of people. So I just really, really want to get that nailed down and perfect. So we're just a smooth machine running, and we don't have to worry about that stuff. And everyone knows exactly what they need to do when they need to do it. And they don't have to always ask a question because they'll be able to find it themselves, or we'll have already given them that information in a clear manner to where they understood and we didn't miss something. So I think those would be the two biggest successes of the year, is to just really get all that stuff nailed down and very, very clear, and everyone just be doing what they need to do.
Gotcha. Yeah. So the the new marketing tactics, you're looking to get some jobs from there, and then the really putting more emphasis into the client experience through that onboarding process. Those are going to be the two biggest things. But what about let's say you have a magic wand, right? And the overarching goal is to re attempt to reach that eight-figure mark in the business. So let's say that magic wand, you had one wish, right? And you can remove one problem or add one solution in the business that would double your momentum, give you your time back, and really just get you to that goal. What do you think that one thing would be?
Well, that's a tough one. Magic wand would be to be able to do estimates in like a day.
Okay.
The design part is super fun. I love that part, and I'm okay with that part taking longer. But again, the estimate is the part that's like the most stressful part of that whole process for me, anyway. So I would love for us to be able to figure out how to really streamline that and get that done quicker and more efficiently. And to really be able to, again, magic wand, to really be able to understand what the client wants right away. Cause sometimes we get through the whole process and then they decide they want something completely different. So I think that's part of the onboarding process too, is if we could figure out how to make sure we're asking the right questions to make sure that, there's no holdups that part. But I think magic wand would be estimates in a day.
Yeah, no, that would definitely save a lot of time for sure.
Yeah.
And being able to have not just a better understanding, but like looking into the customer's brain and really knowing what they want and what they're looking for. So I guess going along with that, I'll ask you one more question. What's a trend you're kind of seeing with homeowners right now? Maybe changing expectations, maybe around budget timelines, decision making.
I would say budget and making decisions. People don't, and honestly, I didn't really understand either until I was in the industry. But prices have changed so much since COVID. And so people aren't really understanding that yet. They think they can do a whole house for 100 grand and you just can't do that anymore. And I think that the education there is just, trying to make it very clear with the client and letting them understand and have the correct expectations. We do try to be very transparent when it comes to even ballparks. When someone reaches out just as a new lead and they say, we want to do a million things for 100 grand, before we even schedule the meeting, we do say, just so you know, it may be higher than this, just because we want to, maintain those expectations. Now, not everybody listens, but, and so I'd say the pricing is the biggest thing. The biggest challenge right now is because people aren't understanding why things are so expensive. And they really are compared to what it was in COVID. I mean, things have just doubled. And unfortunately, they're not going down. So, a lot of people are like, well, maybe we'll just wait a few months. And we're like, well, prices are only going to keep going up. So I think the education around that is, a really big trend right now is, again, what we're trying to accomplish and make sure that, everyone's on the same page at the beginning. So once we get through that whole process, they're not just like, oh my goodness, we can't do this because they already sort of know what was coming. But yeah, I'd say that's the biggest challenge right now is just what people think they can get for the price.
Yeah, so kind of taking an educative approach when talking to customers and being able to adapt to the new, I guess not new, it's been a few years now, but the pricing
Yeah,
sensitivity that's in the market.
correct.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Kara. This has been awesome. I appreciate the behind the curtain look, into the operations, running projects clean, keeping surprises away from clients. It was super great. But before we close out, is there anywhere people should connect with you or Castle Haven? Maybe a website or LinkedIn you're most active on? Instagram?
We're everywhere. So we're on Instagram at Castle Haven Construction. We're on Facebook at Castle Haven Construction. We're on LinkedIn at Castle Haven Construction. So we're pretty easy to find. But thank you so much for having me. This was great. I really enjoyed it.
Of course. Yeah. Well, I'll link some information below so your people can find you pretty easily. But to the
Awesome.
audience, thank you for tuning in to The Intelligent Builder. If you found this episode valuable, make sure to share with another builder, founder, tradesman in your circle, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks, Kara.